Welcome to the Superior Stream episode 18. I believe I'm counting correctly. Your host here, Mayo, and my wonderful co-host, Bodok.
Thank you.
Indeed. I'll go over a few little bits and bobs here at the start, and we'll get into the main show here. I guess, should we summarize? We'll be going over, let's see, the Alison Rapp issue, which is, taken quite a few headlines. The NX controller hoax, as well as the Pantsu debacle, as I'll call it, regarding Star Ocean 5, and a little bit more, a little bit of everything tonight. But yeah, for introductions and talking about from the last show, I believe I miscounted the number of views on our previous video. I was thinking of another one I did. And another thing, if you may have already noticed, if not, then you'll see here, or well, you won't see anything, you'll hear it. We're going to be doing audio only from here on out, so I may change that as time goes along, but for the sake of simplicity, I think that's probably for the best. Would you agree, Budok? Or
Yeah, I think it's good for now. Kind of help streamline things, make it a little less of a headache on editing and et cetera, until we get a bigger fan base and see what they want, if they want something more.
Right, and it also cuts down on file size as well, because even a modest hour of content for a video would easily stretch into multiple gigabytes until I reformatted and crunched it down. So audio should be at most 20, 30 megabytes if we take a long show. Probably less than that. But yeah, lots of changes in the works. I'm still testing out different things and trying to get different stuff to work. We almost didn't have a show tonight because of various audio issues, but we got that worked around. I guess the final bit of pre-show going over bits. We are looking maybe for an artist as well as a musician, mostly musicians, for maybe some different bumper music as well as other little audio bits and bobs. So if you like music or if you make music, do let us know. I can't guarantee any kind of form of compensation, but at the very least we can get you in the credits for the show. And then of course mention you during the show as well. But that's all we have for the preliminary notes.
Good news.
What's that?
The whole NX controller thing that we were talking about last week or a week or two, last couple episodes, was a big hoax. So those aren't actually going to be the leaked images so far have all been fake.
Yes, made from 3D printed menagerie of bits and bobs, and then I think they sanded it down and made some fake kind of glass to go over it, and voila, a fake NX controller. It was actually quite well done, though.
I think the first one was all digitally rendered. I don't think that one was actually made. The second one, there was a second leaked image, which I think the guy did actually use a 3D printer and bunch of trickery and spray paint and everything to actually make a physical device. I think he said he wanted to see if he could make it, to see if it could be made, or if it would be feasible to make something like that. I forget his excuse, but
it certainly looked real enough.
Yeah, I mean, it was as far as hoax goes, it was pretty elaborate. I guess well done, but yeah, I mean, I guess now I'm probably going to hold any kind of reservation at all until the ultimate official word is out as to what they're going to actually be doing.
Yeah, and I had figured it was fake because it looked exactly like the patent, so which is almost never happens. So that was that right there. And you didn't get any kind of official kind of confirmation from Nintendo. Nintendo was just quiet about it. So it's yeah, this is more than likely fake.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of doubtful as well, but you never know with Nintendo. It's hard to say.
Right. But I guess some more NX news. Although I don't think we have any links up. But I'll do some retroactive hunting after the fact. Uh, Supposedly, the NX, which is going to be the new iteration of the Wii U, or I guess an HD version of the Wii U, is possibly spurring both Sony and Microsoft to release upgraded versions of their consoles. Now, I've heard this a bit on the grapevine, so like I said, this may not be entirely true. I have heard that Sony is working on the PS4K, which is going to be an upended PS4 to support a higher definition of video quality. And Phil Spencer of Microsoft had said that he did not have any plans currently to like release a little bump stop for the new Xbox console, but you have to know their guys in R&D are at least considering it. If both Nintendo and Sony have already made steps to get a, I guess, intermediate step in this console generation.
Yeah, I mean that sounds feasible. I mean, with the 360 and PS3, they had the slim versions, so yeah, I could see it as a intern step. I think they're still going to be doing the regular version as well, but it's supposed to be smaller, I think, for the PS4, that is.
Like a PS2 Slim kind of deal.
Well, I mean, the PS3 did a slim version as well, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they did.
I believe so. But yeah, but a more streamlined version of their current console, correct?
Yeah, right. And the only problem with that, which is from what I've read or heard, it was either a podcast or something, but which they made a good point, is as far as I know, most games that have been put out haven't been developed in 4K, so all you're going to be getting is an upscaled version of that. If you're looking
usually,
to play
I think it's like 720p at most. A lot of them are still doing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not necessarily going to be any better quality, but it might look a little better because you're going to have just a lot more pixels on the screen with a 4K screen anyway. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how it all works out, but you know, it's there's some options in there, and I'm sure the prices will be coming down. I think the Xbox One last advertisement I was seeing some models going for around 350, so they're coming down quite a bit as well.
Well, this is a bit of conjecture on my part, but I'm expecting both Microsoft and Sony to have modular consoles, if not in some version of this generation, then definitely in the next generation, something where people can mix and match parts and pieces. Because what you have on the flip side, on the PC crowd, you can buy like a pre-built PC, or in some cases even like a consoleized PC that is modular in nature. So you can open it up, like take parts out, put new parts in. So where the consoles kind of had a one-up on PC for being easy to access and so forth, the PC is outstripping them, as well as offering more options. So what I'm thinking we're going to see, like I said, maybe in this generation, possibly, I'm saying fairly sure in the next generation, you're going to see modular consoles. Almost, it'll harken back to the days of the N64 expansion pack, or the Sega, was it the Sega CD attachment, whatever that thing was. Goodness, that's what I think anyway. Do you think that'll be too big of a step for console folks? Because in my mind, I don't see it that outrageous. Because like I said, in the N64, you had the expansion pack. You had, like I said, the Sega CD. And other consoles in the past have also had interchangeable components, but you haven't really seen it that prevalent since, like I said, the N64 era expansion pack kind of deal from what I've seen.
I don't think so, because I mean that's usually one of their reasonings for selling a new console is bigger, better, faster, what have you. But yeah, I mean the most you might see is storage upgrade options or things like that. But one of the reasons that a lot of these consoles are offered at the prices they are is because all this stuff isn't modular. It's mass produced. So they have to kind of make it to where if something breaks, you just warranty it, buy new, and whatever. It's just cheaper. If you make things modular, it tends to be more expensive to accommodate the being modular and being able to swap out stuff. So there's an extra cost thing to that as well.
I think so. Well, I I would have to agree with you on that point. When people start messing around with their consoles, removing pieces, putting in things, there's always a chance that they may have an operator error, or the piece that they get or to replace it with just maybe a bad piece. So I can see there being a higher frequency of breakdowns if that were the case. But what you're getting at actually is just it's easier in general just to have a set mold, so to speak.
Yeah, it's just a lot easier to when you're working with specifics as opposed to having to accommodate extra hardware. Because you also run into that in programming as well. Like if they have to start worrying about different components, then that's extra programming or extra coding they have to put into games to accommodate for stuff like that as well.
And you think that, I guess, with the direction that the PC is gone, do you think that, I guess, a funny way to say this, do you think consoles could really emulate how the PC operates in that fashion? How it is, how like the different settings can be applied to different games based on what components you have in your console? You think that's too far out the range of what consoles you think can do?
Yeah, I mean at that point you might as well have a PC, right?
Well, that's what we're getting into though. Then why even bother with a console? I guess the argument is ease of use, but how easy does it have to be to, like I said, swap out like the expansion pack for the N64? If it is like an operation that's that easy, like it's just a modular little thing, like a plug and play Lego piece. If it is that easy, and it's even the layman, so to speak, could do it, you think that wouldn't? You think that would be too much work? You think still, or just not
Yeah.
feasible, like production wise?
Uh, I think you're going to run into issues with um, the actual hardware production and game side as well. Your developers have to accommodate the possibilities of all the different hardware.
Well, what I'm saying is they
And
already have to do that with PC, though, correct? Well, at least when they're developing for PC, right?
uh, kind of, but the thing is, like, you're typically only going to be working with one of two different video card architectures, either ATI or NVIDIA. And if you notice, they both manufacture, both um, types of cards typically do a bunch of driver updates to accommodate a lot of your games. I know NVIDIA, I haven't been too up on ATI cards nowadays, but I know with NVIDIA, anytime you have a major AAA release of a game, they tend to release a driver that is supposed to work or utilize that game, uh, you know, a little better, or performance, you make it perform a little better, what have you. And I think recently there was a debacle where they botched up one of their driver updates and it broke more things than it fixed. But yeah, I mean, there's a complication to the whole matter, which is um, the way the PC handles it is a little different because your game runs on the operating system and it kind of dictates how it spits out the video to your hardware and whatnot. But when you're dealing with the console side of things, I mean, there's you know more things to go wrong, and I think that it would just add a whole other layer of complication to things, even though it may just be as easy as plugging something in. It's just going to add a cost there and complication there that they just don't want to deal with anymore. I
I
mean,
gotcha. Like in my mind, like so, the way I'd pictured it was, if the PC can do it, why can't consoles, and vice versa in regards to capability? I don't I don't see the benefit of having like something that's set in stone technologically uh, over a long period of time. That's the weakness of consoles I always saw. And with the technology being the way it is now, and with components being as durable as they are and as flexible, so to speak, I guess technically, I don't see why more console makers don't consider that as an option. Like you said, it could be a big cost element. I didn't think of it that being that much of a cost, but
kind of on a similar note to this topic, though. I'd have to go. I wish I would have saved this article, but recently there was some kind of conference that Microsoft is part of where they also advised everybody that this summer they would be releasing a big update to Windows 10 that was bringing just some quality of life changes to it. And one of the changes is that they're supposed to be redoing the App Store and
right.
basically tying it into Xbox Live as well. So your games are gonna, like you can buy a game on one and play it on the other, and vice versa. From what I understand, I could be wrong, but
No, that sounds correct. Like I think we talked about this in a previous show, or at least we touched on it. The Universal App Store it's called, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and if you go to if you just do a quick search, xbox.com/en-us/windows-10, they've actually got kind of an article in here. I'll send it to you so you can add it to the show notes later. But basically, they go into detail in talking about how you can stream games from your Xbox One to your PC and play them on your PC. So if you had like a shooter that you wanted to play with keyboard and mouse, you could. Also talks about taking advantage of the DirectX 12, and you could chat and play between Windows 10 and Xbox One. So it's from, if I'm reading it correctly, they're going into a lot more detail with cross-platform. So
Right.
you could play, essentially do something like play Minecraft with somebody from PC and Xbox could play together, or Forenza, or any other real game, and you can chat back and forth as well. So it's kind of really interesting.
Right, and I know that we kind of went back and forth over this. In my mind, though, like I said, I'm having trouble getting that disconnect where the PC can't be a console, the console can't be a PC in that respect. Well, more console can't be a PC, I guess. Where, like I said, in this case, like I said, regarding Microsoft's universal platform, you're literally playing Xbox games on a PC. So why even have an Xbox One if you have a good PC? That's getting to the point where we're getting, I guess.
Maybe you're playing PC games on an Xbox One.
Are you thinking like having like a Steam platform, or having? Well, I guess.
I was just messing with you. You said playing console games on a PC. I say maybe you're playing PC games on a console.
Oh goodness. Well,
but no, I think it's actually a really good direction to go. I mean, it's going to it basically gives them a lot of options, and I'm pretty excited about the whole thing. I mean, I may or may not ever own an Xbox One, but or another console, because I tend to get them. I'll play them very sparingly, but they tend to collect more dust than they're actually used. So, I mean, I've got a PS3 that literally the last time I powered it on was just to update it, and that's probably been over a year ago.
Right.
And I guarantee it needs another update before I could play something on it now. So, but if there's some of these Microsoft games that I want to be able to play, then I should be able to play them now, as long as they're going to have that cross-platform compatibility. So I guess now, instead of it being an Xbox exclusive or PC exclusive, then they could just say it's Microsoft exclusive.
Right. And that's going to rustle a few jimmies down the road from the Sony camp and Nintendo camp, I'm sure. But speaking of Nintendo, since we've been talking about Nintendo quite a bit here, are you familiar with Miss Alison Rapp?
Sparingly.
Okay, I'll give you the cliff notes. At one point, I believe she worked as a translator for one of Nintendo's internal departments. Then she moved up to a PR person, and basically just she would make tweets and stuff, on behalf of Nintendo. She was recently terminated, and I'll read the quote here from Nintendo. Alison Rapp was terminated due to a violation of an internal company policy involving holding a second job in conflict with Nintendo's corporate culture. All right, so she got fired, but what's the real story behind this? Those in the know, if you've been paying attention to Miss Rapp here over the Twitterverse, she's come under fire for her views. She happens to be a feminist, so if you're not keen on feminism, however you feel about that, and some statements regarding pedophilia, which may or may not have been taken out of context in some regards, and subsequently she was also cited in a college essay she'd written, which, like I said, again, take with a few grains of salt regarding, pedophilia and Japanese culture. So, kicked up quite a bit of dust here, and like I said, she'd recently gotten fired. A lot of folks are saying that Nintendo's in the wrong. That Nintendo caved to harassment folks going after her on Twitter about her views and so forth in politics. I guess, where do I stand? I'm never for any group of folks online trying to get somebody fired. I don't agree with that. I definitely think you should be able to criticize someone's opinion, and if they're saying something you don't agree with, you're well within your right to debunk whatever they're saying. Actively trying to get them fired from a job, I can't get in any kind of camp that wants to do that. It feels very, very 1984ish in my book. And like I said, she does have some radical views depending on which side of the political spectrum you're on. So I can understand why some people were not too terribly keen on her.
Yeah, but you know what? The way I feel is that she's entitled to her own views. I mean, it's part of living in this great country of ours is that we're entitled to. We're more than welcome to feel the way that we want to feel about something. I mean, that's just part of life. And what I took, because I kind of, when I found out you was wanting to talk about this, I just kind of briefly familiarized myself with the situation, and from the things that I read and listened to, basically she is like a lot of us gamers or cosplayers or whatever is into the Japanese culture, and her essay I think was basically pretty much to summarize, it was saying that we don't understand the Japanese culture, so we just basically need to butt out of the situation and not push our views on their sexualization of underage people, which is the case in most of their games and anime and whatnot. Is typically they tend to sexualize underage people, and she was just basically in her essay was just saying, that's their culture. It's just the way it is. It's not necessarily right or wrong. It's their culture, and you can't, just because we're from a different culture and have different belief systems or feel a different way about it, doesn't mean that the way they feel is wrong. That's the whole point of having different cultures and different belief systems. And I think that's where kind of the pedophilia thing spiraled out of control for her, or where they were trying to say that she supported it or something. But it was really just her saying, if we don't understand their culture, then we shouldn't have an opinion on it. Yeah, something else I listened to about a report on her was that I forget what game it was they said, but there was basically a Nintendo game that the Japanese version literally had a slider specifically to adjust the boob size of female characters, and they were forced her. I think she works for like the Treehouse Group, which basically does the translations for Japanese games for Nintendo.
A little note: she doesn't do that anymore. She used to, but go on.
Well, anyway, she was for having the boob slider, even though they were forced to take it out for the American audience. That was one. She said, who cares? It's that was in the original game. they're okay with that as their culture, and that's where the game is from. So why take it out? Which I think, a few episodes back we were talking about Japanese cultures in games, and why in translation or localization they had to take things out, and that being one of them. There was another game where one of the characters was gay and they had to take that out. Um, basically she was pretty much an advocate of just leaving it as is, and because the game was based off of a certain culture, and with you taking that out, it kind of takes away part of the game. And
Right.
anyway, I think I'm kind of getting off topic here, but basically, I think this is just kind of all a bunch of bullshit, and should just leave her alone and let her be. If she's more than welcome to be upset about her situation, and I don't agree with them just canning her like that. But it's part of life. Employers are going to find ways to get rid of you if they want to, and you just have to kind of move on. Yeah, you're going to be unhappy
Right.
about it, but I don't think this really deserves to be as newsworthy or as big of a deal as it is. I mean, if I got fired from a job for having a second job, I wouldn't expect that to be in the local 6 o'clock news,
Well, like I said, a lot of it's dust kicked up from the Twitter war, and there's a lot of folks a bit on the right and a bit on the left going back and forth with one another. Mostly on the right, they're attacking her for feminist views. The pedophile is the cherry on top, so to speak. And mostly, like I said, I don't want to admit this being the case, but a lot of it is just misogynist kind of overtones. And like I said, that's with me disagreeing with a lot of her views. Even I can see in many cases where they're just going after her for having a vagina, and that's not really how I am politically. I don't want to. I'm not openly against the sexes. I will definitely criticize women here and there, but the way that they've went about it is not the right way, from what I've seen. There's better ways for there to be discourse and dialogue than what I've seen going on Twitter.
It's unfortunate. On a side note, she is cute though.
Yeah, I saw her pictures. That's that may be part of the case. The why Nintendo sacked her, because supposedly the pictures that she was posting were NSF, or not safe for work, I should say. So maybe that clashed with Nintendo's look of being a kid-friendly company. They didn't want softcore pornography being represented in any part through their employees. Like I said, I saw the pictures. Like I said, there may be some more pictures I haven't seen, but she looked all the way covered from what I could see. But she was holding a Nintendo DS and other Nintendo paraphernalia. So I guess that may have ruffled some feathers at Nintendo HQ. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've seen those pictures, but she had some pretty sexy Ness cosplay pictures up that is nothing bad. I mean, it is nothing revealing at all. It was tasteful, but she did have some sexy poses in there, and I thought it was pretty nice. I mean, I'll be honest, and you can back me up here because I know you've been to a few of the anime cons that I have. I've seen more provocative and scantily clad underage people in cosplay at these cons than, and she didn't even scratch the surface of being scantily clad or not safe for work, in my opinion. I mean, there's a lot of inappropriate for people's ages cosplay going on at a lot of cons that, basically, you're seeing all of a girl's ass cheeks because all she's got is string up her butt, butt crack, and a lot of other revealing stuff at these cosplays. So,
Right, and what I'm getting from the story is the whole her getting fired for a second job is more or less Nintendo kind of covering its ass legally. They can't fire her for her views and opinions, because that'll get them in some hot water. So how could they fire her without them being sued? They saw that she had some pictures. She was doing some modeling on the side. Okay, you can't have a job outside the main one. You're fucked, and they just fired her that way. That way they could avoid all the legal hoops they had to jump through for firing her for her opinions, based on what I'm seeing. Like I said, that's not their official stance, but anyone who's watching from the outside, that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess in the grand scheme of things, we'll probably never know the full details, but hopefully she finds better employment elsewhere.
Yeah. But enough sad notes here. Let's talk about some Pantsu, or as I'm calling the Pantsu debacle, regarding Star Ocean 5. Okay, well, what am I talking about? So let me go ahead. We have a little article here from the Tech Raptor. I'll post a link to it here in the show notes. Here's a line from Kobayashi, that's his name. Recently, there's been a lot of flack from overseas countries saying that if you put teens in sexual underwear, it's not good. So we increase the amount of clothing. Basically, they add, I don't know, maybe an inch or more fabric to her undergarments. The change is not that significant. And in my honest opinion, it felt very much like they're making this announcement to get press more than they are to signal about how they're pro-women in any capacity. Because as someone who enjoys the Star Ocean series, let me just go ahead and say every Star Ocean from 3 and onwards just sucked balls. So I don't think anyone was really getting excited for Star Ocean 5 to begin with. So if they can kick up any dust in the media, in this case it's about the censoring, that's going to be good for them. At least their game is getting some play in the news outlet, which is more than it was doing before. That's what I'm seeing here. It's just a desperate claw from this company to hopefully get some kind of space on news websites. But like I said, that's just the way I'm seeing it.
So basically, they didn't do anything to lengthen her skirt or whatever. They basically just put her in a pair of granny panties.
And they're not even granny panties. You can argue they are a little bit. Like they said, from what I've seen of the little blurred screenshot, you can still see a bit of her butt hanging out, but it's just slightly less than it was before. And I was confused. Like I said, there's more. How do I say it? Like I said, if this was a demo and people had already played the game and they had seen it before and they could contrast it with something else, I can see that maybe being an issue where you'd see it patched over the original panties. But that's not even the case. This game is in development. The only people who know about the alleged Pantsu, are the people actually making the game. So they literally could have not made any announcement and nobody would have been none the wiser. So why go out of their way to explicitly claim, oh, well, the panties were like this before, but then we heard stuff flack from overseas countries saying that you can't put teens in provocative underwear. So that's when we changed it, and knowing good and damn well that there's been other, companies that have had to make edits as of late. And whenever they make that edit, they get all kinds of news press. So what's more likely? That they actually felt the need to change the panties or that they just wanted to get some news press? In my mind, it's a lot more likely they just wanted to get the press.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I'd say it's more just a publicity ploy.
And like I said, I've played all the Star Ocean games. I do quite well. I've not played 4 or 5. I played a bit of 3. And 3 was a fucking mess. I'll just go ahead and say it. So I do have a heart for Star Ocean 2. And I would love for Star Ocean 5 to be good. But the way they're having to kind of pander out this panty issue, it does not bode well for me. It thinks that maybe they know the game's kind of shit, and they're in a way to hopefully get some sales. They're trying to kick up some dust on Twitter and so forth. It's really quite sad. But all I can do is hope that the game will be decent. But I'm not particularly excited for it.
Well, I have no opinion one way or the other because I've actually never played any of the Star Ocean games. This was actually the first thing I'd ever seen about them. So I guess I've been under a rock for too long.
No, well, the original ones came out. Well, the original came for the SNES. I would say the quintessential version is Star Ocean 2. That's probably my favorite. Although they did a rehash of Star Ocean 1 and they ported it over to the PSP along with Star Ocean 2. So if you're interested, if you want to try out a classic sprite-based RPG, let me know and I'll send you my copies over the internet. You can play them for free over some rather illicit means. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, but yeah, that's my Pantsu debacle. I found it rather humorous and a bit sad.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's. I guess they're hurting for some sales, or I guess there is a saying that even bad publicity is good publicity. So it's
right. There's no bad press. But, uh,
so I
I
guess the
guess
next thing we got up is the whole Steam Greenlight exploit that happened over the past week or two.
right. You can give your monologue on this one because I only know a few scant details.
All right, so basically, I forget the exact date. I'd have to go back and look, but there, this 16-year-old kid um, found a way to get a game published on Steam, start to finish, without having to pay the $100 fee to get it to put it through the Greenlight system, and to avoid going through the checks and balances to get it actually published. According to the articles that I read and everything, basically he had been trying to make this bug known, and he had been trying to get Steam to recognize it and do something about it, and he basically got fed up and decided to just do the exploit and try and do it in a tasteful enough way where he wouldn't get too much hate or have too much come back on him, but get them to fix the problem in the long run,
Right.
which pretty much worked. And kind of a side note on this is a lot of companies, especially software and website companies, stuff will offer bug bounties. So if you find a major bug and report it to them, and they recognize it, you'll typically get a fair amount of money. I mean, I know some places have offered 20 grand for reporting breaking bugs for their system. And notifying them before anything bad happens. Oddly enough, Steam doesn't have any kind of real system like that. Google has it, Facebook has it, Yahoo. A lot of other software manufacturers have bug bounty type systems set up where you'll get something. At the very least, most of them will offer you like a citation on their security page where they'll basically give you props for finding it at the very least. But yeah, to go more into the story though, basically he makes this crappy game called Watch Paint Dry or something like that. It's only about a 45-second game, and he didn't mean for it to immediately go up. I think he probably kind of click the button, and then he's like, oh, well, it's already done, so might as well finish it. But he said it took about 2 days to get this set up and working and happen, and exploit their system. But yeah, it was a pretty big debacle. Steam was caught with their pants down, and especially, not really a good sign from Steam, considering it wasn't but just a few months ago that they had a major breach, and well, not really breach, but they messed something up, and it was possible to see other people's Steam content, including billing information, or I think billing addresses and stuff. I don't think the credit card, all they would see is like the last 4 digits or whatever. But yeah, there was a big issue a while back where if you signed out, you could see, you had the chance of seeing some other people's content because of this cookie sessions or something along those lines. But yeah, it's
Right, a rather a big problem on the security side, and they had to patch that stuff lickety split.
yeah, the one biggest facepalm moment, I guess, if I could tell the kid anything, is he could have waited a few days and done this for April Fools, and it would have been the perfect April Fool's joke.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But yes, this is a problem with Steam Greenlight, but it's indicative of a much bigger problem, I think, as well. Is how much oversight does Steam Greenlight currently have? Like how many man hours are we getting from Valve in this part of Steam? Many would argue not much. If you've seen the amount of shit getting on the Steam Greenlight lately, and there's like people who actually pay the $100 fee, I don't feel like there's a good enough strainer or filter for shit content, which just like it's filling up this early access tool and blotting out other possible games that are actually worth a damn with literal crap, which is people just throw up on Steam and they want to make a quick buck before people realize their game is utter horseshit.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of games that because you can actually get refunds for games from Steam, but it's all time based. So what a few shady developers have done is they'll make these crap games that seem okay and interesting in the beginning, but basically they're coaxing you into playing beyond the refund point, and then when you hit the refund point, there's nothing else to the game.
Right.
The game will literally just there's nothing more to do, or it just it stops or what have you. So you can't get a refund, and I think in a few cases Steam has made some exceptions, but for the most part, yeah, I mean that's one way some of these crappy shithead developers have been making some money off making crap games. Is you make something mediocre for the beginning, charge $5, and a few thousand people buy it, which is completely possible even for a bad game. And next thing you know, you've made a year's salary off of something you probably put 10 hours in.
Right. And like, so this isn't even like going off your topic. Your topic's a bit different here regarding, like I said, the guy who he hacked it just to show that it could be hacked. Like I said, I'm touching more on just like I said, general the shit that is Greenlight.
Well, it's mostly an automated process. I mean, you pay your fee, and that's basically your fee for them to be able to tell that you're serious, and that's actually their main checkpoint. Is if you pay that fee, then they're just basing a lot off of feedback from the Greenlight community. So I'm not entirely certain of the entire process, but basically beyond the $100 fee, which is the first step, you go into a vetting process, which is the next step, and then after so much of that, then you can get it published, and then after that, it becomes a full-blown item that can be on the Steam store. Yeah. So it's basically he found a way to skip the first step, and then he found a way to send an argument to allow the I'm just kind of paraphrasing here. I know that the phrasing I'm using isn't correct, but basically he found a way around the fee, and then was basically able to send commands and interject his own values when sending the commands through Steam or what have you, to fake the rest of step 2 and step 3. So basically he was just saying, here, look at this. I mean, I think part of the article was even saying that he was tempted to title it Half-Life 3, but he figured he would probably get a lot of death threats and a lot of hate mail pulling such a bad joke as that. So, but yeah, basically, they weren't paying him any attention on his bug report, and he just went ahead and showed them. Yeah. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. He could have done a lot more damage, but so I don't think he really had any ill content.
Right. From what I've seen, it's basically him just saying, I could have done, this. Here, take a look. It's more definitely helpful as opposed to what he could have done.
Hmm. And I can't say that. I mean, yeah, technically what he did was wrong, but I kind of see it as he called their bluff and they weren't paying him any attention to something that was obviously a serious problem and they should have addressed. And he gave them, from what I understand, he gave them plenty of opportunity. But you know, uh, you gotta. I love Steam and all, but sometimes you gotta really wonder,
Well,
how much they're actually looking out for you.
well, like I said, it's indicative of a bigger problem, and that is a lack of oversight. It seems to me this could have been easily averted if there was just a small team of like 2 or 3 guys who just, filter through Steam Greenlight games. And, they just have to test it out and make sure a game works and that it's not malware or something like that. Something along those lines. Uh, and how much would they have to be paid? I don't know, not much. That would be like an intern tier job, and just have them, sort through it and just verify everything is correct when you're doing Steam Greenlight stuff. That's all it would take, I think. But like you said, it's almost entirely automated. Like I said, there may be a few checks and balances here and there, but apart from that, the barrier for entry is very low on Steam Greenlight, and that's why you're seeing this influx of, let's just utter shite in terms of games that aren't games, hodgepodge asset bundles of just utter garbage just being dumped onto Steam Greenlight. It's literally just clogging up what would be otherwise a great service with just pure shit. And that's my contention. And if you watch any of Jim Sterling's videos, he's had quite a few jabs at various Greenlight developers.
Yeah, I mean, it really is going to be a problem because I'm all about the little guy. I mean, heck, you take games like Minecraft was basically just one guy developed it, and then a year later he's you know knocking kicking back in his mansion because he's made millions of dollars and sold out to Microsoft. And so I mean it's really it puts those indie developers or the small time developers in a bad spot because it puts a lot of hurt on them, the actual people who do the work and try to make something good. And basically you end up with a bunch of crap, and people will start to, for one, they'll start to really hate Steam service, and two, they'll want to try out these indie developers a lot less because they're like, well, I got burnt on this game, so I'm not doing that again, type of
Right.
situation. And there's a lot of good indie developers and good games that are worth a try. So I mean, I really would like to see them do something to kind of even that out and put some kind of better checks. I mean, I don't think that they'll ever have a team to sit there and play through games to see, but I mean, it would be nice. It'd be a pretty cool job for somebody just getting out of school and sit there and play games all day. But
Oh, not necessarily even play the game through it entirely. Like I said, for this would be a good case in point where like a guy playing would be okay. This is obviously a fucking joke, and he could just nix it. You could cancel a lot of that stuff out, or asset flips. If you've been on Steam Greenlight, there's a lot of games where it looks like a functional game, but what they've done is put together a few instances of maps, link them together with assets they bought from Unreal, and pitch it as the next big shooter thing, and people buy it and they realize it's just a bunch of assets cobbled together to look like a game.
yeah,
And
or
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say that, like, for instance, that the paint drying game he made it with MMO Maker, which you can get from Steam. So, I mean, there's a lot of that going on too, where they're just using these pre-gen tools to just basically you put your textures in the way you want them to be. They're already pre-designed
It looks
and
like a visual novel pretty much for the most part.
yeah, pretty much. But you did kind of hit on the one thing that is really the biggest takeaway I think from this is that for what he did, it would be very easy for them to for him to have put something malicious on through his exploited Greenlight system, and next thing you know, you've got viruses being pushed out through Steam. So
Yeah.
it's pretty pretty aggravating situation to have been in. I know they jumped on the ball and fixed that exploit pretty quick whenever he finally did it. So I actually, in a way, I'm kind of glad he did it. It got them to go ahead and fix it.
Enough lamentations over Steam. Let's see. We're rounding out at about, let's see. I don't even know how long we've been going on for. We have a few more topics. Do you want to cover something that we missed from last episode? Or do we even have anything left over?
I think you wanted to talk about No Man's Sky.
Oh, yeah, I think that's the last one we have carried over. But yeah, No Man's Sky. If you're not familiar with it, it's another game, an indie game, if you want to call it that. It's been under development for a little while now, and it is planning to retail for $60. And that's what's, I guess, kicking up a bit of the dust here. A lot of folks are having trouble with an indie game wanting to be the same price as a AAA game. And I'm of the mind if the game is actually that good, then I don't have a problem with somebody charging $60 for a game. I'm still not going to pay that much because I'm a cheap bastard. But far be it from me to say that you can't have your game be $60 if you feel it's worth $60. Is pretty much the way I'm looking at it. I don't know. Do you have much of an opinion regarding price points on indie games? Or are you kind of in the same boat I am?
I tend to be cheap myself, so I usually will only buy games that are either on a really good sale or that I've really been looking forward to. With the exception of that being The Division, I paid $60 for that, but that's just because I was looking forward to it and I wasn't going to buy it until it was on sale. But a good buddy of mine had been playing it and he wanted me to play, and I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll just do it. And I don't necessarily regret that purchase, but I'd say a good majority of my library consists of games that I've got on sale for usually 50% or better discount, and mostly through Steam.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the game better be pretty damn good for $60. I mean, it out the door ought to be, nearly flawless for me to warrant spending $60. Because more than likely, what I'm going to do is not buy the game until it's at least in the $30 range, if not more.
Well, myself is included. I'm with you in that boat. But like I said, that's not the issue. The issue is folks are, like I said, kicking up about it being starting out at $60, which, like I said, I don't have a problem with. Because I'm assuming it's going to come down in price at some point later. From what I've seen of the game, it certainly looks pretty. It certainly, at the very least, it looks of a AAA game. But from what I've read gameplay-wise, it basically is Minecraft in space, except you have a spaceship. So you go from planet to planet, you harvest stuff, you research things, and like I said, it's very ambitious. So far be it for me to say it's not worth $60, but I can understand the reservations some have for it being $60.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure somebody will spend $60 on it, but I can guarantee that somebody's not going to be me.
I hear you.
I'm a big follower of survival type games, like survival exploration type games like Minecraft or Terraria or
DayZ, Ark, was it Ark, some whatever?
I'm not sure about that one, but like I'm a backer, Kickstarter backer for Survive the Nights, which is another survival zombie game. So would I like to play it? Yeah. I mean, it could be, the next best thing since Minecraft. But, I mean, Microsoft owns Minecraft now, and they're not even charging $60 for it. So,
right.
it's Yeah, it's I think it's a hard sell for any game. Like I don't really think games should cost that much nowadays anyway, because a lot of that cost, in my opinion, was due to the media. Like you had to buy the disc to install the game. Even for PCs back in the day, you had to buy
Right.
the disc
There was a physical box along with your purchase. There wasn't just streams of data floating through the internet.
yeah. So I mean that to me that took up and I'm exaggerating here because I guarantee they paid less than a penny for each disc or what have you, and things were so mass produced that it was cheap. But I would say, in my opinion, if I would like to see like a 10% less cost to a digital copy of a game versus a physical copy of the game, just because you're cutting out shipping, you're cutting out all kinds of stuff. You're just downloading the game and going at it. But everybody's still ingrained on that whole $60 AAA title
Right.
field. That yeah, I think it's going to be a hard sell. I think if they would put it around the $30 or $40 range, they would sell a whole lot more. But that's just my opinion.
Right. But that's about all I had on that. You had posted another topic here in the same kind of vein of space exploration. We have Star Wars: The Force Awakens Blu-ray DVD coming out on April 5th. So go out and buy it. I wish we were getting paid to say that.
Yeah, and I figured it was a little cheesy to add that in, but for all the Star Wars fans, it's coming out in a couple days. Yeah, go grab it. Or I guess depending on your editing, it may already be out by the time this gets posted. But yeah, I think I was looking on Amazon, and you get the Blu-ray, the DVD, and a digital copy for $20, which is pretty good.
Oh, it's only $20. Well, I guess that's not too bad. Like I said, my issue is, does it have director's commentary?
Yes, even the digital copy.
Well,
I don't know about the director's commentary, but there are extra features and stuff, and that is the only reason. Pretty much, I don't buy movies or anything anymore because they'll eventually come to Netflix or Amazon Prime.
right.
But this would be one of the few movies that I would play just because I am such a huge Star Wars fan that I would want those extra features or behind the scenes
right.
things. So
I will not buy any kind of DVD or Blu-ray unless it has director's commentary. It can have a number of different special features, but unless it has a commentary track, I don't bother with it because I have to have either director's commentary or like actor and director or some form of commentary over the movie. That's what sells the DVD or a Blu-ray for me. If it doesn't have that, I cannot rationalize a purchase.
yeah, it's same here. I mean, otherwise, just wait for the digital copy and get it for $5 or whatever off Amazon or what have you. But yeah, that's the only reason I added that in there is that if you're a Star Wars fan, it comes out on the 5th. I'm sure if you're a Star Wars fan, you probably already know that though.
Yeah. Well, you did want to talk about it. I went over it in a previous episode, but I'll go ahead and give you my summary. I found it adequate. There were points in the movie where my suspension of belief could not be maintained when Rey, I believe is her name, the supposed daughter of Luke, where she more or less gets her force powers very quickly in a very short period of time, and there's no real. I don't feel like she had the proper kind of rituals, so to speak. Ritual is not the right word, but the way of going about attaining them. And you're just supposed to believe that she was able to do it because she's that good with the Force. When you could argue her father, or maybe possibly her grandfather, or depending on how you want to look into the spoilers, like Anakin had such good Force powers, maybe that somehow transferred to her. And like how he was able to be so adept at pod racing, in long ways, maybe that makes sense. But I don't know. I like when she and Darth Sidious. No. It was who's the new Dark Lord?
Basically Han Solo's kid.
Yeah, Han Solo's kid. he like her.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Yeah, he and Ray went at it, and she more or less, it was back and forth for a while, but she was holding her own against what was effectively like a Darth Vader tier. Well, he wasn't on Darth Vader's level, but he was fairly close to it. Like he knew some sword moves, he knew force moves. Like he was no novice, and supposedly he killed all of Luke's like disciples. So at some level, he has to be fairly well adept with the lightsaber, and he's toe to toe with Rey, and she's giving him a run for her money. So
I mean, for crying out loud, the dude literally stops a blaster bolt in midair, and without even thinking about it, is walking around and talking while it's still being held in midair. So if you're strong enough with the Force to do that, then why was someone untrained with a saber and untrained in the Force able to pretty much beat him?
that's what it was like, and you can argue, well, Chewie shot him, and also the other guy like nicked his back or whatever. Even then, he has some hardcore force powers. Like he could have at any point, like I don't know why he didn't force choke her or force push her into a tree. It seemed like he had a lot of stuff available to him, like skill wise, that he just wasn't using. Uh, I guess you could maybe argue he was shaken because of how good she became in such a short period of time. It knocked him off his course, off his balance, you might say. But for me, I just had trouble believing it. And nothing against, oh, well, she's a woman, she can't do it. No, that's not it. I'm saying just as her character in this universe, the amount of training she had versus the training of the guy she was up against, she had no right to even come close to beating him. But I guess whatever, it's the story. So that was really what kind of killed the movie for me.
I mean, this is my thing. To put it into perspective, look at the amount of training that Luke went through, and he was barely able to pull a lightsaber out of the snow to save his own life, and that was with training. And then you go to her with no training
from Yoda, like the best guy
Yeah.
in the whole universe, pretty much for training.
Yeah, and then you go to her, who no training with the Force and absolutely no training with a saber, can pick one up and is adept enough to not chop her own arm off.
And take on a Sith Lord, no less. That's I was like gobsmacked. Like, is this fucking for real? Is this a dream sequence? This cannot be happening. And by the time I realized what happened, it was already over. Like she had, well, I wouldn't say she beat him, but for what she accomplished, she may as well have.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I would say it was a draw, and it shouldn't have been. But I think there's been some speculation that it's been a big ruse and that he's actually still on the good side. So he's just kind of making it look good. But yeah, I don't know. I think there was some big oversights in with her. And then don't even get me started with Finn. Finn, I think when I see Finn in the movie, I literally picture him as a dog, a little puppy following Rey around. Like he's literally, ha, ha, can I come? Can I come? Here, follow me. And like literally, he has the attitude of a puppy wanting to follow around his master. And that's, I mean, the movie could have done without him entirely, in my opinion. I mean, not to say he's not he was a good actor, but I don't really see what he brought to the movie.
Well,
I mean,
for the first half of the movie, he didn't even want to be in the movie. Like his character was like, I want to run away from the dark side guys, the Order. That was his whole character. And then for whatever reason, him seeing her being carried off in the new Order ship, that sparked him being the hero, I guess, and chasing after her, which is it's like a complete 180 versus what he was going to do originally, which is just run the fuck away. Well, with good reason, because the Order apparently is no joke, or at least it was until they got blasted. But yeah, I understand completely, and I agree with you in that regard. There, I guess if you want to give one word to Finn's performance, it would be inconsistency, because you have. Like, does he want to be the hero, or is he acting on his own behalf? Because he keeps jumping between those two kind of directions, and you're not sure, should you be rooting for him, or is he just like a cowardly character. What is he even doing?
I kind of almost put him in the same bracket as Jar Jar Binks. Like Jar Jar, Jar Jar was had no use in any of the movies, and almost the same thing. Like he was a coward and wanted to run away, but then he wanted to help, and he pretty much was just in the way most of the time, which is kind of what I feel from
Well, but they make him out like so during battle scenes. Like he has to take on, what does he do? He flies. Well, he helps fly that TIE fighter out of the hangar, so he's shooting the laser thing there. Later on in the movie, he fights other stormtroopers and stuff on that one battle on the jungle planet. So it's showcased that he's not actually completely incapable of fighting. It's just that he does not want to fight.
That's another big point of contention I have is the fact that he hated all the killing, and the one thing that made him finally break was all the killing that happened in that village. Yet when they're leaving, oh, I don't mind blowing up all my buddies that I was in training with, as
Exactly.
they're flying out. What gives there? I mean, there was just so many. Overall, I enjoyed the movie, and I'll watch it probably time and time again, but it still has a hard time holding up to the original three. And I mean, the humor that they brought into it as well was almost over the top. It was still good and mostly tasteful, but there was a lot more humor to it than any of the originals, or even any of the first three, the prequels. But yeah,
Right.
and I hate that they killed off Han. I mean, he's one of my favorite characters.
Well, if you go back far enough, originally he wanted to die, I think, in the first or the second movie, but they kept him in anyway. But so I guess that you could argue that's been a long time coming. But more to that point, there's a whole bunch of issues I have with Han as well. The whole kind of he just happens to be in the same area that the Millennium Falcon is when it's leaving Jakku planet. I can't believe I remember the names. When they're leaving Jakku, they just so happen to run into Han Solo. I mean, what are the odds? And then, Han Solo, he doesn't know Finn, he doesn't know Rey, or at least you can assume he doesn't know Rey in any capacity. But he just he immediately is like, okay, I guess we're a group, so follow me. And they all hop on the Millennium Falcon along with Chewie. I felt like they just kind of threw him in out of nowhere because, oh, look, it's Han Solo. I felt it was very forced. Again, a lot of the parts of the movie are like that, where it's just coincidence for coincidence sake. And you could argue, well, it's the Force, it brought them together, whatever.
It is a big universe, but if you think about it, that's how Obi-Wan and Luke met up with Han Solo. It was pure luck. They come across him in a bar, in Anchorhead, and from then on they're like, oh, well, I'm in it for the money, and sure, there's a reward. I'll help you save the princess, and so I mean, that part of it, there was an easy grouping there originally, and I kind of think that everybody knows more about Rey than what they're letting on. I think maybe originally he didn't put two and two together at first, but I don't know. I mean, I think they purposely leave it open so you can make your own kind of speculation and assumption there. But
okay, well, I'll ask you this question then: was the whole him smuggling those monsters in the ship and the interaction with him and those bounty hunters looking for him on that ship, was that really necessary, or did it feel like they just had to fill time so they had the whole hijinks of them running around Han's new ship?
I think it added necessary filler, because if you remember, Han Solo is pretty notorious over screwing over people, and basically that's what that whole scene was reinforcing the fact, because the one thing that they had to do,
right, for new generations who have not seen the previous movies, they had to establish that he is Han Solo and the Han Solo character. I understand that.
Yeah, so I think it was necessary filler. I mean, yeah, if you were a big fan, you would already know all this, and you wouldn't have to have that part in there. But I think I think as far as immersion goes, that added to the immersion factor of getting you into the universe.
I don't know. Maybe I just didn't like it because it was so. I would argue almost cartoonish. It wasn't cartoonish, but it was getting there in terms of just how the wacky antics of that particular situation played out. Of them having to jump through the vents, go through the doors, while it's literally a tentacle monster with arms is just eating people left and right. And I don't know, like I understand that's his introduction. It just felt very kooky, I guess. Maybe it's because I'm getting old and I'm a cynical asshat, but I had trouble enjoying that part of the movie. I just I couldn't even look at the screen.
The one thing that I really have to complain about that is the first time that Han fires, or supposedly the first time that Han fires Chewbacca's bolt blaster or
Bowcaster.
bowcaster, yeah. And I'm like, okay, they've been together for how long now? And this is the first
Oh
time that
yeah,
he's shooting it. I mean, yeah, as far as the movie goes, we wouldn't have seen it probably any other time, but and it did add a comical factor there, which was one of the more well done jokes. But yeah, I'm just that was probably the most irritating thing about that is like, really, you want to tell me this is the first time you've shot his bowcaster?
and it's of course implying that they've been together for God knows how many years. Well, of course you don't know that if you've never seen the previous movies, but if you've seen the previous movies, you would assume at some point during their misadventures through space, Han Solo would have picked it up at least during a firefight and shot it when like Chewbacca was either incapacitated or unable to shoot it, or something along those lines, I guess. That's probably reading too much into it, but yeah, that ticked my autism as well.
The one thing I guess the biggest complaint overall is that literally they redid everything in this movie that they did in the original three.
Right,
They
and Han Solo even brings it up as like, okay, so what do we got to do to blow this thing up? Like when they show the new Death Star, it's like, come on, how hard can they lampshade it?
Yeah, I mean, it was literally you take the original three movies and you condense them into one movie and with different characters, and that was A New Hope or The Force Awakens. Like you had the random pairing of Rey and Han Solo. You have the whole Death Star thing where they have to go and find the plans and find out how to destroy it, which it ends up being you blow a hole in it and you fly into this hole and shoot something inside the thing, which is how they destroyed the Death Star. I mean, it's I don't know. That was my biggest disappointment was that there was literally, other than new people, there was really nothing new that happened.
I don't know. Would I be wrong to use the word memes in this case? Like they took memes from the previous Star Wars movie and kind of recycled them. Like I said, the Death Star blowing up. The whole like I said, like you mentioned, the grouping up where they grab everyone together and that puts them together. They're recycling those concepts. Is it entirely bad that they do that? I know it. Like I understand your criticism. I guess when does a nod become abused, or like when does a nod turn into a lampshade? I guess.
Uh, you know, all I really got to say is that unless they bring something new to the table with the next movie, I am going to be severely disappointed. And
Right. So if they retread the same ground as the first three movies did pretty much in the second movie, that'll be a very big disappointment.
yeah, basically that's going to entail probably Luke Skywalker will die in the second one and come back as a ghost, just like Obi-Wan dies, and he'll come to Rey and using the Force Vision thing or whatever it's called. I forget, but if something like that goes down, which I'm probably pretty much guessing will, then that's going to be just like the originals as well. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. but time will tell.
But apart from shitting on Star Wars, I like I said, I actually found it an all right movie. Like I said, I'm not calling it the worst movie ever, but whenever you see problems, those are the most glaring things you have to talk about. Uh, I guess if I were to talk about the parts of the movie I enjoyed, I said, of course, was it J.J. Abrams that did this movie? Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, he knows a thing or two about pointing a camera around. So the cinematography, very good. You had like shots that move quickly in the right way. You had focusing on characters and actions rather than what you see a lot nowadays is where if the movies just having a talking bit, they'll just kind of pan back and forth or just cut between two people talking. Uh, like I said, action bits had action, suspense bits had suspense. It's definitely J.J. Abrams showcasing that he's J.J. Abrams, and like here, watch my movie.
Oh, story aside, the movie was really well done. What I really did enjoy is the fact that they minimized their usage of CG, and they did it with actual props and as much as they could. So, because I don't care how good you are, if you put CG in a movie, you can obviously tell when it switches to CG, and that just breaks the immersion for me so much. So they avoided they still avoided as much CG. They avoided using CG as much as possible, which I
Right.
think makes for a better movie, and it has the same feel as it did, um, as the originals did.
Right, and
The first three, when they did the prequels, they used a lot of CG there, and it just made it feel so bland and blah that
right.
it took away a lot.
Yes, George Lucas left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially with the prequel trilogy. Uh, like you mentioned, there's lots of CGI. In some cases, CGI where you didn't even need CGI. Where they could have, I don't know, like I said, I guess for ship interiors or like looking through a ship interior outside, where they could have just, I don't know, they could have either used matte paintings or uh, like projected like a background onto a screen if they didn't want to do that. That's an older technique, but sometimes it can give a more realistic look to it rather than just having a blue screen CGI. At the very least, I think it would make maybe the actors feel more in the moment, more in the scene. Whereas if you go back and you watch like the special features of the episodes 1, 2, and 3, there'll be entire sets composed entirely of green geometric shapes that they'll just repurpose after the fact into the actual sets. And you're like, how can the actors even get in the character when they're literally playing in what is essentially like a geometric playground of just oddball shapes? I don't know. So yes, the use of practical effects, uh, much to the chagrin of George Lucas, perhaps maybe not, uh, definitely made this movie stand out compared to the prequel trilogy.
And you know what I'm talking about, right? When I say that when a show or a movie transitions to a CGI effect,
It's
eh,
noticeable.
it's very noticeable. Like I can tell if that's a model, eh, like if they took a model of a ship and filmed that versus a CGI rendering of the ship, it looks very different. Like the the model filming of the ship looks so much more real and so much more like it belongs and functions versus it looked like something semi cartoony. Um,
Right, and that's where I kind of get back to the one part, like the tentacle monsters with teeth. Like those were obviously CGI. Like there was no suspension of belief for me there. It was just yes, okay, let's throw in some CGI monsters. That's what I took away from that scene.
yeah, eh, I mean the using practical props and stuff nowadays would I would expect to look a lot better. But like you can tell that the Rancor is almost kind of a stop motion type action filming in the
A Jedi
uh,
Sprite or was it Return of the Jedi?
yeah. So when Luke's fighting the Rancor, you can tell that that's an actual physical object and not a rendering, and it it gave it a better feel than something that looked fake. Even though there were a couple times where it was a little jerky and you could tell, but it wasn't enough to break the immersion as to knowing, something looking obviously fake.
Right. You go back to movies like The Thing. Like that's a definitely a movie where practical effects just made that movie. Like people go back watch The Thing nowadays and still are just like captivated by the level of detail, the level of artistic wow that is in that creature. That you like, and then you go and watch the 2000 version where it's all CGI, and it just looked fucking goofy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, did you happen to getting off topic here, but you see the I forget what it was called. I think they just call it The Thing and just be like 2016, right? Or not 2016, but whenever that thing came out.
I don't think I've seen it.
Well, that's probably for the best. You're not missing too much. Basically, it's a precursor to the actual thing. So they're going to.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
this was in the Arctic or whatever.
Right, and
Yeah, I have seen it.
yeah, and they basically go through the beginning of what they when I guess 1980s thing, what the facility they run into. That's where this movie takes place, and I wanted to see the movie because I was curious about the backstory and how they were going to play it, but just I was rather disappointed. Like it wasn't the worst movie, but it definitely did not hold a candle to the original thing.
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed with it either. Now that I remember what the movie was, it was obvious. Um, the Yeah, it didn't have the same feel as the original, which unfortunately is often the case. Is when they try to make these prequels or whatnot, it just doesn't have the same feel as the originals did. So it takes away a lot of that. I mean, same thing that'll probably happen with like the Ghostbusters movie. I guarantee it will have the same feel, so I won't have the same connection to it.
All right. Well, a little bit of a, a little diversion there, but let's I guess try to get back on the road here. I guess the last section tonight will be review corner, and you, like you mentioned, you're playing the Division. I was kind of curious your thoughts. Uh, I guess issues you've had with it thus far. What's your general consensus?
General consensus, thumbs up. It's a really fun game. Um, I like the way they put you in the story, and basically, spoiler alert, there's been an outbreak of shoot, I can't think of
The MacGuffin virus. Go ahead.
but they pretty much refer to it as the green virus or what have you. But yeah, basically, the city's in shambles. Everything has kind of fell apart because the outbreak was so severe. There, the government is actually wanting to try and pull out of, I think it's Manhattan.
Basically, the you have to have some kind of something to drive the story forward. So you need to have a reason for people to be having a bunch of guns and tactical gear running around Manhattan, and the whole premise is a virus broke out, and you're the guys who have to clean up the mess. Would that be a fair kind of judgment, or in so many words?
So basically, all hell has broken loose, and you are part of the Division, which is this, um, you know, kind of semi-secret division or group that was put together that kind of is almost above the law. Um, there's no real check and balance on them other than they give you the impression that it's just ran by people who want to do the right thing or do good.
Naturally.
Yeah. And basically the division is called in when there's no other choice or nothing else, no other options can be had. The division is called in to rectify a situation, or to kind of basically they're the last stand badasses, and In this game, you're actually a second wave of them. The first wave is mostly dead or missing, which later you find out that the ones that are missing went rogue and are causing problems of their own. But yeah, basically you're put into the city. There's different sectors that are kind of level appropriate, though the mobs level scale with yours. So you can go back into a beginning zone and do stuff, and you're just not raffle stomping it. You're because they are going to be the same level as you or higher, and so it does keep it interesting. And there's a ton of content. The story itself right now is relatively short. I've finished all of it. There's still plenty of side stuff to do, and that ties in like side missions that kind of tie in with what has happened. Like you're running around trying to find this one person that you is in the division with you, trying to find her sister. So you got to track down where she was and what happened to her, and try and run around and find her. There's another portion where you're tracking down this virologist to find out what she found out about the disease.
So you would say the story definitely is gripping. It pulls you in with the characters and the plots and so forth, right?
Oh yeah, it is a very good story and has a lot of depth to it. And I would say uh, if you have the money to spare, it is well worth the $60. If you're a little on the stingy side and you're not dying to play it, then you can of course wait. But if you have any reservations, and of course this is my opinion, but um, I really enjoy the story. I mean, even going into the dark zone, which is kind of the the free for all type area, there's even a really interesting way they tie that in, and a story behind that as well. Um, and also for those that were wondering, and this is one of my one of the things I was kind of reserved about. I was afraid if I went to the dark zone that it was just going to be a big gank fest, and like people would just be trying to play or kill on purpose. And what I found out, and I did some time in the dark zone earlier today um, with a buddy of mine. Basically, um, you unless you intentionally kill another player, um, most of the time you're left alone by other players because um, when you kill another player, you get marked on the map.
Right, you go
And
rogue as it's called, correct?
yeah, basically you go rogue, and if they kill you, then you drop uh, all of the dark because you have a separate inventory for the stuff you find in the dark zone, which is a really small portion of your inventory. So you drop all the stuff that you find unless you're wearing it, and you lose some dark zone experience, I believe, and some other stuff. So overall, I've the short time I played in the dark zone, I had a pretty good experience. Nobody tried to kill me. I think my buddy actually killed one person, and that's because there were two people fighting, and one guy looked like he was obviously trying to kill the other guy, and the other guy was just getting away. So he just went ahead and dropped him, and that was that. But
So you would say there's a good risk reward system for going rogue versus being a nice guy, then, right?
yeah. I mean, basically they push you to be a nice guy, or at least they push you not to be a dick.
Right.
Um, the other aspect to it is when you're in the dark zone, the stuff you find there, because the dark zone is considered a contaminated area, um, and they have it cordoned off from everything else. And in the dark zone, the stuff that you find, the only way that you can bring items out of the dark zone is that you have to helivac them out. And so there's certain checkpoints where you can call a helicopter in. They'll drop a rope down. You attach your gear pack, and they'll fly your stuff out and put it into a storage area for you to later go back and get. And you can basically it gets cleaned and you can use it. The when that happens, the players in the immediate area are also signaled that a helicopter is coming in, so they can come in and use your same helicopter. Or if the person is wanting to be hinky, when you're about to attach your gear, he can kill you, so you drop your stuff, and they'll get a chance to pick it up. But at the same time, if they do that, they will immediately get marked and be targeted by other people as well. So
Right.
it is really interesting. And the so you're still, when you go in the dark zone, it's not, the dark zone really isn't intended for PvP. I mean, you can do PvP, but it's more intended as a more of a risky contested area, and you can still go around and fight NPCs, and the mobs are a lot harder there. There's a lot better rewards to be had and a lot better gear. So it basically brings an entire other factor to a more playthrough value beyond the actual story.
Right.
And the other aspect too is that all outside the dark zone, there's these encounters that pop up randomly that you can go take part in, and yeah, they are kind of the same handful of stuff, like go to the supply drop and guard it from the random looters, or go help this army. They call them the JTF, but they're getting pinned down. Go help them, type of situations. But I mean, to me, it's beyond the story. You still have the playthrough of running around and helping people and just having a good time with a shooter. And then
Gotcha.
if you want to run around and do PvP, then you can. Um, I mean, and it's kind of an active release cycle too. Like, there's some new, for lack of a better way of putting it, they're releasing a new dungeon or two here pretty soon, which is basically like an encounter scenario where you fight. You have your typical uh, dungeon basically, and you go fight guys, and then there's a boss here and there that you got to fight. So those are usually pretty well done scenarios and have stories of their own. And I'm sure they've got a lot of other content planned, but yeah, it's a really good game. I mean, if you've been thinking about it and you've got the money to spare, I'd say go ahead and take the dive. It's it really helps if you've got somebody, or if you know somebody that's already been playing it, who can kind of drag you through a lot of the stuff.
Oh, I was gonna ask, are items level locked, or could I just come in and you could toss me like your no joke rifle?
There's actually no player trading,
Oh,
at least right now. I think they have plans on adding stuff like that. There is also crafting. You can make your own stuff, but gear drops so much, and and you go through gear so much that um, it's not that hard at all to get really good stuff right away. I mean, you can you can go through an instance, and you get to do these instances pretty much right off the bat. Um, the bosses will usually drop a really high tier um, piece of armor or weapon. There's the random rare drops of just off random mobs. There's named mobs that you can run up on that drop really nice stuff. Um, I mean, I'll put it to you like this. Sorry, I had to cough there, but put it to you like this. Most of the stuff I just break down and turn into crafting supplies that I've just been holding on to for when I do hit 30. I can start crafting my own stuff,
I see.
and playing around with stuff with that, because there, you get money off killing people and you can buy stuff, but I haven't really found much of a need, because just running around playing the game, I find pretty decent stuff as it is, that it's not really necessary.
I gotcha. Uh,
Um,
but yeah.
there's no there's I think is really interesting, and sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to add this in too. There's not really, you don't have to play at the typical tank, DPS healer type stuff, although you can situate a group like that. Like, they have weapon mods that will increase your threat like there'll be a muzzle break that gives you more threat towards the mobs or the enemies around you, and there's also weapon mods that will give you less threat for attacking them, the mob. It in a way kind of puts itself in an MMO type bracket where you you can set your party up to be like you have a tank who has really high armor and hit points, and who runs around taking out the threat, and then you have somebody who's focusing on just pure damage, and then you can have somebody focusing on healing, because there are some healing effects and skills. And another thing to mention too is that this isn't like a present day type thing. This is set in the future, or more futuristic, like near future type situation, where
Right.
there you've got like this your own personal computer that talks to you and tells you about stuff, and the healing is kind of futuristic nano type stuff. So it all kind of fits and flows really well. The UI is beautiful. It's a really beautiful game. And another thing too is that you can run multiple characters. You can have more than one character if you want, but there's not really much of a need, because you at any time you can swap out your skills and gear even while you're in the middle of fighting. Like if you've got if you're not if you've got the time in the middle of a fight, you can sit there and change out what skill you have assigned. Like I can trade out a heal for a DPS, like a sticky bomb or something, and do that on the fly without having to go respec somewhere and do stuff like that. So it makes it really interesting, and there's no real downside to experimenting with different combinations of different skills and stuff. So yeah, it's try it. It's a good game.
I definitely have had my eyes on it, and as soon as it goes on sale, it's definitely one of the games I'm thinking about getting. All right. Well, I guess my side of the review corner then will be Origin's Access Service. So this will be kind of a dual review, where I kind of go over Origin as well as Battlefield 4. But I don't have too much to say. I'll kind of try to skim over it quick here for you. But yeah, EA's Origin Access, $5 a month. Actually, it's like $5 and a few pennies, but who's counting? You get access to pretty much all their big main title games: the Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Titanfall, and a number of other titles as well, which you can check out on their website. I'm not going to shill for them too hard. I tried it out on just wanted to see what it was like. It worked for the most part. I can see why some people still aren't too keen on Origin, because Battlefield 4 worked fine. When I went to play Battlefield 3, I could not get it to launch. After I jumped through a couple different hoops, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get it to go. Like, so that may be an issue on my end, but after having spent at least an hour trying to finagle settings, I cut my losses and go. Subsequently, regarding customer service, I'd actually canceled the Origin service, because the way I read their terms of service, you can cancel at any time, but your service will still be active for the remainder of the month. So I went to go ahead and cancel it, and I wasn't sure how to reactivate it. So I contacted customer service, and they gave me a refund, which is nice. They didn't have to do that, my error. But good on Origin. Thank you, EA. It turns out I could have simply reactivated my service at any time by clicking reactivate. Like, I thought that I had to jump through some hoops to do that, but I did not. So overall, the best way I can describe my experience with Origin is awkward. I wish I could have maybe played a few more of the games, but after having trouble with Battlefield 3, I just got frustrated and didn't want to deal with it no more. I don't know. Have you had a chance to dabble with Origin at all, or not really?
I've got a few games on Origin, but I haven't tried their new Vault, or whatever they're calling it. The subscription service. Yeah, I haven't tried that out yet. I'll probably hold off and see what more they bring to it because they're supposed to be bringing other games into that envelope. So, I mean, it was what, $5 a month, and
Right.
you get access to some really good games. So that might not be a bad way to go for that. I mean, I know a lot of people they'll put buy subscriptions to stuff and then just forget to cancel it. So, I mean, they'll probably make a bunch of money off that from just people doing that kind of thing.
Right, but the price per game, like I said, if Battlefield 3 had worked, that would have been real nice. I've been able to play both Battlefield 3 and 4 for only five buckaroonies. There were, like I said, a number of other titles, Titanfall, Dragon Age, and like I said, a couple others that I wasn't terribly keen on, so I didn't want to spend time just messing with them. But the selection was there. I guess I should talk about Battlefield 4. Not too much to say in this part. I would say the AI that accompany you in the single player campaign feels a bit useless. Both the story and the characters of that single player campaign are also forgettable and annoying. And I beat the campaign in right around 6 hours. And that was me like taking my time and just trying to have fun with it. And a lot of folks listening who play Battlefield games will attest. Well, the campaign's not a good part anyway, which I will agree. The campaign's not their focus. Their big focus is the multiplayer. But after Battlefield Bad Company 2, I had come to expect there would be some degree of quality with the single player. Like they would at least be able to be in on their own jokes. But I did not get that from Battlefield 4. It just felt overly dramatic, melodramatic, I would say. And the AI, like I said, you can tell it to do things, but it doesn't really do it that well. So you may as well not have AI friends at all. Just be running around by yourself. That's the way it felt for me, and it just overall unsatisfying single player experience. As far as the multiplayer goes, it's not bad. Like I said, it's Battlefield 4. So tanks, jets, helicopters, the whole works. All kinds of vehicles. Fly it, shoot it. It's fun. I felt that the way they balanced the weapon unlocks made it so that since everyone can get the quote-unquote good gun, nobody had the bad gun. So, like, engineers, medics, support folks, they all had the best rifle, so to speak, because the best rifle was available to everybody. There was nothing stopping you from getting that rifle, where in previous iterations of Battlefield, classes were more locked into what kind of weapons they had access to. And in that regard, I guess it felt more like a Call of Duty kind of experience where everyone's getting that gun. And I don't know, it didn't feel like a proper Battlefield experience to me. It felt more just like a bang bang shooty, have fun in this multiplayer battle arena, as opposed to a traditional Battlefield experience. I don't know. That was my take from Battlefield 4.
Yeah, I think the last Battlefield I played was Bad Company. I don't know if I played Bad Company 2 or not. As far as like the traditional multiplayer Battlefield, I think it was Battlefield 1942 or something.
Right. I was big on Battlefield 2 myself and Battlefield 2142, as well as Bad Company's multiplayer, but not too terribly keen on Battlefield 4's multiplayer.
Yeah. On a side note, back to the Origin subscription service, actually it's cheaper than I thought it would be. I mean, think of it like this: at $5 a month, after a year, you're paying $60, which is your typical AAA release. So as long as you play at least one AAA game out of their vault per year, you're getting your money's worth.
Right, fair argument. The only issue I would have contention with that is if you want to argue what is value. The Battlefield 4 currently retails the basic version without any DLC. The stripped down version goes for I think like $19.99, so $20. The same thing with Titanfall and I believe Dragon Age as well, all $20. So it's let's see, how would you do the math on that? You're not paying for one game, maybe you're paying for maybe I don't know throughout the year 3 or 4 games as opposed to one game. But how much value you derive out of the dollar amount is my question.
Well, I mean, really, in my opinion, it's on par with like Netflix and stuff. That you're paying for access to all the movies and TV shows that they have on their service, which is, you're basically paying for access to all the games that they have in their subscription service, which
Right.
is limited right now. Like right now, I would say hold off, but in the future, depending on what games they add to that, it could be well worth the money. Instead of spending $60 on, whatever new game they put out, you're only spending $5 to play it, and you at the same time you could literally, basically you're paying $5 a month to play every game in their subscription library, which honestly isn't that bad. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, if I'm only, what if I spend more money on the subscription than what the game is actually worth? Well, if you only play one game and you don't take advantage of all the games, then it probably isn't going to be your cup of tea.
Right, and that kind of delves into like the subjective question of how valuable is a gaming experience. So how do you equate fun into a dollar amount? So you can argue it's a good or bad deal either way in that case. It's hard for me to really make that distinction, I guess.
Well, that's the reason I use my whole mentality about the price of a movie. What I spend to go to see a movie in theaters, compared to the entertainment value I get from a game.
Right.
So, you look at the time you're going to, and for that, you have to really look at the time that you spend in a game, or in this case, several games. So, as long as you're getting more than $5 worth of value, so typical theater ticket's going to be $15 to go see an hour and a half, 2-hour movie. So I would say as long as you're getting more than 2 hours of enjoyment out of your purchase, then spending a third of the same amount on a subscription service probably isn't bad.
I hear you. But yeah, if you want to try out EA games for cheap, definitely give Origins Access a go. Like I said, maybe I just had a fluke with Battlefield 3 not working quite right, and far be it for me to say that it's perfect. But it's for what it does. Like I said, it's a compelling deal. So definitely give it a look see. And yeah, thanks for watching, folks. Like I said, this time we're just going to be recording audio only. You may see some kind of picture overlaid in the background, how it would normally appear. So it may not be a large departure from how it normally looks, but the way we're producing this episode is a bit different from normal. So hopefully everything will be up exactly as it normally is. I don't know. Do you have anything to plug? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, for those that may listen, just bear with us. We're still kind of trying to find a good foothold and figure out what's going to work. So we'll probably streamline it and bring it into a more manageable bracket and keep it within, I'd say, probably an hour. We're just trying to, once we figure out what's going to work, we can work on condensing it down and streamlining things.
You won't hear what we've already cut. So like I said, this may be actually 2 hours of content that'll turn into 1 hour of content. But we'll see. Whatever needs to be cut will be cut, or maybe repurposed for a later date. But no, definitely thanks for watching. We may have an extra guest or so, and then, like I said, if that's the case, you'll find about that next show. But I think we're about done for tonight. At least I am. But take it easy, folks. Again, take it easy, Bodok. It was good chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. See you folks later.